So I woke up this morning, and first thing I do is I look at my phone, do all the things I need to do on the phone. And you remember way back when I was trying to arrange to have Professor Kwoh, chairman of the psychology department at the University of West, to come talk to us about mental health. Turns out that the day that I invited her was the day that they had the fire in Los Angeles, and she had to cancel because turns out that PG&E turned off all the power and she didn't have any power, so therefore no Wi-Fi, no way of joining Zoom. And then since then she's been busy. She had to go back to Singapore where she was born and raised and visit her aging parents and all that, enjoy the holiday, and she came back. And so this morning she posted on Facebook, which I like to share with you. And she was answering people on why she had become so political, talking about this and that. And then somewhere in there she said, the moment the good and the wise people stayed silent, the evil and the stupid would triumph. It's not about winning a fight, it's about not losing our rights. Oh, I like that. I like that. I like women with a purpose. This is similar to this week's class. For some reason, it was not posted publicly. So even though I had started it, it never showed in your feed. And so I tried to figure out why. And it turns out that they thought that my class description this week was too political. They considered political speech, and they would not tolerate that. Well, I'm not going to lose the platform over my my principal. So I keep tweaking the descriptions, and finally they say, oh, that's good enough. All right. There comes a time when if one side tells the truth and one side tells lie, there is no two sides. There is no two sides. You have to speak out. You have to speak out. And I want to talk about what Buddha think about all this, right? So we have a saying, what would Jesus do? And so here we have a saying says, what did Buddha say? I remember Einstein was the one that says, if there's one religion that would explain science, it would be Buddhism. I like to turn it around. I like to say that science is an attempt to explain Buddhism. In fact, Buddhism really connects quantum mechanics and relativity, which is something that the scientist is trying to struggle now since Einstein. There's a lot of stuff in the science that is talked about in Buddhism. I can go on, but let me talk about what I want to talk about today, which is the universe that we live in. So the scientist talks about the Big Bang, which is actually a unfortunate description of what happens at the beginning of the universe, which is that there were no bang, there were actually no fire. There were no sound. There were nothing. It was just darkness. And it was a point of singularity that all of a sudden it started expanding and creates space. And with space, it creates time. Because there is no space, what's the point of time? Right? And so that's how Einstein explains the world. And he gone as far as saying that time is relative, meaning that time is not something absolute within a universe. There are parts of a universe that have different times, sometimes slower, sometimes higher. So I don't know if you guys seen this one movie, and for some reason I forgot the name now, where they talk about space travel. It was actually an important movie because it was actually a movie where the script was written by a professor at Caltech, where I spent 3 years on my sabbatical. And not only the script was written by him, the entire technical team were this professor and student. And it talks about space travel and talk about how they landed in a planet that was very close to the horizon, what's called the event horizon, very close to a black hole. And they were supposed to be there for just a few hours. They got stranded. And when they returned to the spaceship, their fellow astronaut had aged 27 years, when in fact they were only there for 3 hours. And so that talks about the relativity in time. And that's talked about in Buddhism. As we become enlightened, we move from this realm that we know, where the humans live, to where the higher beings live, and they have a different time. But in any case, Buddha described the universe that we live in, this universe that have space and time. He called it the Saha Realm, Saha, which is he's being sarcastic, because he's saying that the beings that are living in this realm suffers every day. But in order to endure the suffering, we develop patience and endurance. And so he actually called that Saha, where the inhabitants have this great ability to endure suffering and never want to get out. So that's his sarcastic way of describing the world that we live in. But he also used a different word, and I actually looked it up, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce it properly, but it's probably called turbidity. He described this world that we live in as a world of turbidity. Turbidity in English means a fluid that is very cloudy, lack of clarity, due to the high number of suspended particles. So if you take a glass of water and it's not clear, it's not pure, then you can't see through it, and that's called turbidity. And he described this world that we live in, the Saha world, by the suffering due to this turbidity, that we cannot see things clearly. But before I talk about turbidity, this cloudiness that we live in, there are two things that are very distinct about this world that we live in. One is that all the inhabitants, all the beings that are living in this realm, are subjected to cycles of birth and death, something called Saṃsāra. Now you might say, what do you mean? I thought we only live once. Well, no, I'm sure we do. I'm sure that physical existence live only once. And so you mean you will come back as a cockroaches? Not necessary. Not necessary. I don't want you to think too much about that. Except when you think about an iPhone or a cell phone, there are parts of the cell phone, right? There's the little card, the SIM card that stores all your personality, all your information. So when you change phone, it's the life and death of a person, of a physical being. You retain that SIM card. And this SIM card can come back in a newer model iPhone and an older model iPhone. It might even come out as Android. God forbid. Anyway, it retains that spiritual DNA through the SIM card. It's similar. It's similar. The scientist actually explains it a little bit better by saying that there's the material, there's the energy, and then there's something called information. It hasn't been proven yet. And it's called the Hawkins radiation. But we're not going to, I'm just saying that there's the possibility that we might die. Every cell that is in the body came from food that we borrow from the universe. We're going to return it. Not a single one is left. But maybe something else is left. And then that get into another cycle of life and death. But in any case, Buddha says the Saha realm distinguishes itself by having inhabitants that are subjected to repeat cycle of life and death. In certain religions, they said if you can escape that, then you have eternal life. Right? The other thing that Buddha talks about is that this realm is where both good and evil can manifest itself equally. In other words, I don't believe that there is necessary good and bad people. I don't believe that people are necessarily either good or bad. from my experience working in the prison, people are capable of evil, extreme evil. I could be surrounded by murderers, serial murderers, rapists, people who are incarcerated because of their deeds. But the same person is also capable of compassion and loving kindness. It also has to do with the conditions. So this is what Buddha says, is that the realm is such that the inhabitants are capable of good and evil equally. So I don't think that the people who vote for Trump, even though I invited them out, are evil. I think it's unfortunate they were guided into what I would call non-virtuous act. But that's how it is. That's just how Buddha thinks that we are. That's why he called it the world of turbidity. It's a muddy world. We're not enlightened. Now, I'll go ahead and talk about a little bit about this world of turbidity. There are 5 reasons why we're suffering in this world. One is called Kalpa Turbidity. Now, it's kind of strange. What does Kalpa mean? Kalpa is a measure of time. And 10 Kalpa is about 13.4 billion years. It's a time of, pretty much since, not exactly from the Big Bang, but basically starting at when we start to have light. And it basically says that because you're living in a material world, you're always going to be struggling with material. And over time, there's going to be insecurity due to your material needs. So these days, we talk a lot about food security. We have plenty of food in the United States, but not so much outside. Because of climate changes, because of wealth distribution, because of all kinds of reasons. Lots of people have no food security. We have no border security. Why are there so many people wanting to cross a border? Because they cannot live anymore in their part of the world due to any number of reasons. So we develop a lot of problems now that Buddha says is just the way it is, because you're living in a material world, not a spiritual world. You're struggling with disease, you're struggling with earthquake, you're struggling with fire, you're struggling with flood, you're struggling with all these natural things that are intrinsic to your existence, and people are fighting over it all the time. War against war against war. I don't know how many wars I've been through since I remember starting with Vietnam War. Venerable Du Hong was talking about his experience. He grew up in Vietnam. He talked about his experience in Vietnam War, and he talked about Agent Orange. We fought a war in a third country because we believe in something, and yet the weapon that we use is indiscriminate. It didn't just kill the plan to reveal Chi Minh Ho Trail. It kills all the vegetations and all the people. And I mean, it just goes on and on. And Buddha basically said, well, yeah, that's, you're struggling with material. What do you expect? Well, in addition to struggling with material, we struggle with an opinion. That's the second turbidity, is the view. Everyone has an idea. Everyone has an opinion about what they should do. And then finally, we struggle with our desire. We struggle with our addiction, our affection. And then we struggle with each other. Struggle with the society, change in the society. The society has changed a lot, right, since I've been here. Our idea of what's important, what's not important has changed a lot, and we can't quite keep up with it. I've been an educator for the longest time, and I noticed that my students were different from my generation. And I studied that, and I realized that they're different because they have different way of growing up. And I point to Sesame Street. I say, you know, Sesame is a show that turns education into entertainment. And my student who grew up with that expect to be entertained. So if they cannot study, if they do not understand what I say, instead of working harder like the way I used to do it, they would blame the teacher for not making entertainment. All right, I accept that. But that's a change in the society. The change continue, and all of a sudden I noticed my kids were making fun of each other. We were doing crazy things at the dinner table. They even fought on the dinner table. Where did that come from? Oh, that was from Simpson. Okay, the world is changing again. I was in technology for the longest time. I remember all these social network that comes up. Facebook was not the first one. Obviously, Facebook is very powerful now. But I remember when Facebook came out, we all laughed at Facebook. I said, what the hell happened here? What did they do? Because before that, we used to be able to comment on a post by saying thumbs up or thumbs down. They removed the thumbs down. What's the point of that? Ooh, they were so smart. They realized that they make more money by removing the thumbs down, because if you don't like something, then get the hell out. Form your own group. And all of a sudden they have more traffic. And then I realized that, ooh, people don't talk to each other anymore. People cannot have disagreement anymore. There's no way to thumb down. You just avoid them. I'm doing the same thing. I said, you don't like it here? Leave. The door's right there. You go for Trump, you don't belong here. I have no time for you. I'm doing exactly the same. People don't read anymore, so they listen to podcasts. And now, to get audience, they have extreme views. People like that. Nowadays, if you do fact-checking, they call it censoring. Wow, that's new. The world's changing. Bottom line is that we feel very insecure in this world. Everybody does. It's not one side or the other. Everybody does. Insecure because of material, insecure because of border, insecure with this, insecure opinion, insecure. And insecurity turns into fear. Fear turns into negativity, and negativity turns into grievance. The word grievance comes from the word grieve, which means that you have lost something. People feel lost, right? They interview someone who voted for Trump. He says, I like Trump. I just like to be able to say nigger and cunt and ching and faggot and all that. That's my right. He lost that right. I've been called ching so many times you wouldn't believe. So they grieve for the loss, and that turns into grievance. And an election now becomes one of grievance, not one of governance. We used to elect officials that would serve the country, not anymore. Grievance turns into chaos, chaos turns into destructions. We are destroying from the country from within. The irony is that we are a democracy. We are every bit of a democracy as before. We haven't lost that because our president, our new president, is popularly elected. So we are a democracy. But it's a democracy of grievance, not governance. And grievance comes from fear. We're here to defend ourselves. We're here to defend ourselves, to defend our health, our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health. So we have to understand how this negativity works. It all comes from fear. From fear, we have anxiety, we have depression, we have agony, loneliness, boredom, regret. Those are the basis of negativity. We're living in shame and remorse and embarrassment and nervousness and loss and self-loathing and anger and jealousy and sadness. These are all negative emotions. These are all negative emotions that are normal behavior because we live in the Saha Realm. So the only solution is that we create what is called Pure Land, place of enlightenment within us. A lot of people think, oh, Pure Land, no, you mean like the heaven. You go there? No, not necessary. Maybe someday, but right now, the Pure Land has to be from within. We have to do that first. Create a place of peace, of compassion, of loving kindness within us. That's how we protect ourselves. And then we try to extend that to our family. That's how we protect our family. And hopefully we extend that to our neighbors. That's how we protect our neighbors. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I do. I'm going to talk about the mindful practice for a Shambhala warrior living in this Saha Realm in order to stay healthy. Physical health, mental health, spiritual health, and to overcome negativity. This is what I do. And I borrow something from my neurologist, and it comes into 5 things, and it's spelled A-E-U-R-O. I said that before, so I'm going to repeat it. N is for nutrition. We live in the Saha world. We have to consume material. It's what we do. But we have to eat mindfully. We have to eat real food. Stay away from processed food. Learn to eat on schedule. Some people say, I'm not hungry yet. No, you have to eat. Because your body has to have this clock that says that it's time to put out the enzyme. It's time to digest. You got to work with the clock. And so eat on schedule. You're not hungry, eat very little. But don't skip a meal. Don't say, oh, I'm going to eat later. No. The body needs to maintain that clock. Eat for probiotic health. We ignore that part. Try not to eat or drink to satisfy craving. Well, easy for you to say. I have my tea, I have my coffee, I have my wine. What other craving do you want? No, I understand that. Right? And you understand that too. So that's for N. E is for exercise. Mindful exercise. Work on your abdominal breathing. That's very key. That's everyone, right? If you do yoga, if you do Tai Chi, if you do any kind of spiritual practice, longevity practice, always come back to abdominal breathing. So learn to do that. You don't have to do it sitting, you can do it exercising. Make sure that your exercise, you don't go run around the block, okay? That's not good for aging, right? You maintain that balance. But you do stretching, right? So we do that next week with the YJJ, stretching. We do cardio, and we tone up our muscle. U is for unwinding. Now, a lot of people say, I relax, I take vacations, I go to cruise ship. No, you don't. You're more stressful than ever. Relax means try to learn to activate your rest and digest, right? Try to restore the balance between your 2 autonomous nerve systems, your parasympathetic and your sympathetic. Try to restore your cortisol sensitivity, because if you're stuck on the rest and digest, you're constantly putting out cortisol, which is the steroid that allows you to reduce your inflammation in your body. If you lose the sensitivity to that, then you lose your self-healing power. Make sure that you have plenty of saliva. That's a very, very important indication that you have that balance. R is for rest. I believe in sleeping before 11 o'clock because I believe in that clock where between 11 and 1 is your bladder and, well, between 11 and 3, basically 4 hours, is your gallbladder and your liver chi activates. And so you're getting 4 hours of blood transfusion. It's very important that you lie down, you rest. So try not to get past 11 o'clock. I believe in sleeping with an eye shade because the eye get activated, turns on the fight or flight, puts out cortisol, and now you have no melatonin or not enough. You're not going to get a good night's sleep. Put eye shades on. Right? Try to sleep quickly by meditating, by focusing on your breath, and just try to exercise that. And if you have to get up in the middle of the night, we always have to do that now, once, and then you come back and very quickly you go back to sleep. Don't look at the phone. Don't do any activity. Just go back to sleep. So these days I sleep at 10 o'clock and wake up at 6 without ever waking up in the middle of the night. That's pretty good. Finally, the most important is openness. This is the most important thing that we do, because anxiety is actually easy to fix. It just means that you have to learn to relax. Depression is much tougher. Depression is much tougher. Open to curiosity, learn new things. Open to gratitude. You're here learning. You're here partly because your curiosity, and I spend a lot of time explaining things. I want to get more of you to be curious about what we do here. Open to curiosity. Go back to when we were a child. We were full of curiosity. Open to gratitude. Everything starts with gratitude. Every day he says, I'm grateful for what I got. I'm grateful for my body. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for the first responders. Look for things to be grateful for. Open to forgiveness. Open to acceptance. Open to sharing. Open to service to others. Open to loving kindness. Open to compassion. Open to sympathy. Open to equanimity. That's how you survive in the Saha world. May all be blessed with peace and with happiness and with health. Namaste.